Have you ever found yourself trapped in the unknown with no clear way forward? The depths in Deepwoken are an unforgiving prison, a place of despair where only the strongest and most cunning can break free. If you've ever felt the crushing weight of being lost in the abyss, this guide is for you. The first time I woke up in the depths, I thought I was dead. Darkness stretched endlessly in all directions, swallowing the light before it had a chance to breathe. The air was thick, heavy, and laced with something unnatural. It clung to my skin like a second layer, pressing down on me, whispering in my ear that I was no longer in the world I once knew. The only sound I could hear was the distant wail of the wind. Or was it something else? A creature lurking beyond my sight, watching, waiting? Panic took hold of me first. My heart pounded, and my breath came in short, shallow gasps. I stumbled to my feet, my legs weak, my mind racing to piece together what had happened. One moment I was battling a powerful foe on the surface, a rogue vessel with unnatural speed and reflexes. The next I was plummeting, my vision fading as the icy water swallowed me whole. That's when I realized I had drowned. But death in Deepwoken is not the end. Not entirely. The depths, the cursed underworld, the abyss beneath reality, was where the lost souls of the drowned were sent. It was a place where the air itself felt like it wanted to drag you deeper, where the walls between life and death were so thin you could hear them cracking. It was the home of horrors beyond human comprehension, where creatures known as the drowned gods whispered from the void, where monsters lurked in the shadows, and where hope was a flickering candle fighting against an eternal storm. I had heard stories. Everyone had. Sailors, warriors, scholars. They all spoke of it in hushed voices around campfires and in the safety of fortified halls. The depths was a prison of the soul, a nightmare that few ever escaped. And yet I was here, stranded in its cold embrace. I took stock of my surroundings. The ground beneath me was jagged stone, uneven and slick with a substance I dared not name. Towering structures, ruins of civilizations long forgotten, loomed in the distance, their architecture alien and warped by time. Flickering lanterns, their light weak and dying, lined a crumbling pathway leading deeper into the abyss. I could see shadows moving between the ruins, shapes that did not belong to any human I had ever known. The first step was understanding where I was. The second was surviving long enough to find a way out. I clenched my fists. I still had my strength, my knowledge, my will to fight. If there was a way to escape, I would find it, but the depths would not make it easy. No one escapes without a trial. The first creature I encountered was a luminant wraith. It materialized from the fog, its form shifting like liquid shadow, its eyes glowing with a malevolent hunger. I had no weapon. My sword had been lost in the fall, but I had my fists, my reflexes, and my instincts. The fight was brutal. Every strike I landed barely seemed to faze it, but I pressed on, dodging its spectral claws, striking back with everything I had. When it finally fell, dissolving into mist, I realized how little I knew about what awaited me here. The depths was not just a place, it was a test. Every step I took, I felt the weight of unseen eyes, the presence of something ancient and watching. The whispers in the darkness grew louder, voices calling my name, taunting, promising power if I simply surrendered to the void. I ignored them. I had to. Giving in meant losing myself. And then I saw it, the city of the drowned. The remnants of those who had failed their trials, a wretched hive of lost souls, scavengers, and the desperate. The city was no salvation. It was a waiting room for oblivion, a place where those who had lost hope gathered to fade away. I refused to let that be my fate. I had to find the gates. Somewhere in the depths, hidden beyond the reaches of madness and despair, lay the trial gates, the only known exit. They were the final challenge, the last barrier between imprisonment and freedom. But reaching them meant crossing the hunting grounds, where the creatures of the abyss stalked their prey without mercy. I met others like me along the way, wanderers who had fought and clawed their way through the darkness, searching for a way out. Some had been here for weeks, months even, trapped in an endless cycle of survival and fear. Some had given up entirely, resigning themselves to their fate. I could not afford to be one of them. One of them, a former warrior named Elias, warned me of the true horror lurking within the depths. "The Enforcer," he whispered, his voice shaking. "A hunter, a judge. If it finds you, it won't let you leave." The Enforcer, a creature of nightmares, said to be the guardian of the depths. I had never seen it, but I had heard enough to know that if it found me, there would be no second chances. The final stretch of my journey was a blur of desperation and willpower. I evaded creatures that should not exist, traversed landscapes that defied reason, and faced trials that tested every ounce of my skill. And then, finally, I saw them. The gates. They stood tall, impossibly grand, carved with runes that pulsed with an eerie glow. But I was not alone. The Enforcer had found me. It stepped out of the shadows, its presence suffocating, its gaze hollow yet filled with something terrifying. Judgment. It was clad in armor that shimmered with an unnatural darkness, its movements impossibly fast, its blade an extension of the void itself. There was no reasoning with it. There was no bargaining. There was only the fight. I had come too far to fail now. The battle was unlike anything I had ever faced. Every strike of my fists, every desperate dodge, every ounce of my willpower was tested. The Enforcer was relentless, methodical, each of its movements calculated to end me. But I refused to fall. I pushed back, countered, found its openings, struck where it was weakest. The fight stretched on, a test of endurance, of skill, of sheer willpower. And then, in a moment of clarity, I saw my chance. A single opening. I took it. My final strike landed true, and the Enforcer faltered. I did not wait to see if it would rise again. With the last of my strength, I lunged toward the gates, reaching for salvation. Light. Blinding light swallowed me whole, and for a moment I thought I was falling again. But this time, I was rising. When I awoke, I was back in the world above. The depths had let me go. I had escaped. But I knew deep down that it was always waiting, watching. And one day, it might call me back. Escaping the depths isn't as simple as finding an exit and walking out. No, it is a grueling test of endurance, skill, and strategy. The monsters here, the terrifying divers, the relentless bounders, aren't just there to scare you. They are there to kill you. Every encounter is a fight for survival, every misstep a potential death sentence. Then there's the Enforcer. If you try to escape unprepared, this ruthless executioner will make sure you never see the surface again. I learned the hard way that the depths aren't just a test of combat, they test your mental endurance. Hunger, thirst, exhaustion, they all chip away at your willpower. The darkness seeps into your mind, making you question every choice. And worst of all, the more you stay, the more you risk drawing the attention of something even worse. I remember the first time I fell into the depths. The sheer panic, the overwhelming feeling of helplessness. I had spent hours building my character, carefully honing my abilities only to lose it all in an instant. The frustration boiled inside me, the bitter taste of failure lingering long after I had been claimed by the void. There were nights I lay awake replaying every mistake, every moment I could have done something different. But in the end, I realized something. Deepwoken isn't just a game about power. It's a game about learning from failure. And if I wanted to escape, I had to embrace the struggle. Would you have made it out? I almost didn't. But here's how I turned the tide in my favor. Step by step, I forged my escape plan. I took the time to study my surroundings. Every landmark, every enemy pattern, it all mattered. I avoided unnecessary fights, conserving my strength for critical moments. When fighting was unavoidable, I fought with purpose. Knowing when to strike and when to retreat was key. The final hurdle. I trained for this moment, ensuring my skills were sharp enough to survive. When the time came, I didn't hesitate. With precision and patience, I made my move, and I escaped. But this was just the start. What I learned in the depths reshaped the way I played Deepwoken forever. Every mistake had been a lesson, every failure a stepping stone to mastery. Panic and brute force wouldn't save me. Strategy and patience would. Learning enemy patterns, avoiding unnecessary fights, preparing for the enforcer. A hard-earned escape and a newfound understanding of survival. By focusing on small, consistent actions, I overcame what once seemed impossible. And the best part? You can do it too. The depths may seem like a death sentence, but with the right mindset, they become just another challenge to conquer. So tell me, when the time comes, will you rise to the occasion, or will the depths claim you forever?